So welcome to today's webinar. My name is Ray Huang. I am the head of marketing here at Canopy Connect, and I want to thank everyone here for joining. Most of you are here as part of the Hawksoft user group. So thank you so much for Hawksoft for helping us kind of spread the word about this webinar session. All right. So today's session is fact or friction, reduce the resistance in your quoting process. We're going to be talking about how to streamline that quoting process, make that a lot smoother for the agent, for the agency, and for your client, helping you become a better advisor to your client and also to win more business at the end of the day. Now, in life, friction sucks. There's points and places for friction. There's purposely built friction, but for the most part, you want things to move smoothly. Like there's no reason for there to be unnecessary points that cause people to stop and question things and whether or not they want to finish going through the quote process and all that. So I want to touch on a lot of that today. First, let's acknowledge one thing real quick, and that's before they start the quote request process, it's kind of a miracle that they got here at all, right? If you think about the buyer's journey, and there's dozens of different models and shapes of what that journey looks like. I think in all of them, there needs to be an element of convenience, flexibility. What does that feel and experience? Let's walk through the steps basically. You start, and from the client perspective, someone needs insurance, right? Hey, there's some catalyst that requires me to explore needing new insurance. Maybe we got my renewal, maybe I bought something new, or hey, like I had a bad experience, right? Any of those things, or a dozen others, someone in that little universe needs insurance. Step two, they need to find you somehow, right? And whether that's through your great reputation in the community, yeah, word of mouth, Yelp, search, advertising that you're doing, what you're doing on social media, or if you got a little shop in the strip mall, right? They need to find you. And that's a pretty big challenge for any agency, I think, is to really get that through. Then they need to know that, hey, I found you. I'm going to pick on Peggy because she was my first comment there, right? I need to know that Peggy can help me, right? I need to know that this agency is the one that I want to help me out. Now I want to request a quote from you. And a lot of times, and certainly when you're out doing your online shopping or whatever, there's plenty of times where you've gone around, you've gone to your different stores, you got whether it's Amazon or Target or whatever you're into, and you put things into your cart. I want to buy these things, but I haven't bought them yet. In this case, I need to want to get a quote from you, and you need to be the one that I want to use it, and actually have to follow through and request that quote. So they need to actually walk in. They need to call you, email you, fill out a form, that quote request form on your website, whatever that methodology is, before we get into what we actually want to talk about today. So that's what I call the miracle for them to even get that quote request in before they can get into this quote request process, the quote request journey. And so just walking through some of these steps, right? And everyone's process is going to vary a little bit. And I like to think of it this way, right? Like you've got your initial quote request, whatever source that came from. I want to get a quote from you. Then we do this insurance data intake, right? This is the process of, hey, now I need to gather all the facts, all the data that I need to properly advise and ultimately run quotes, right? I need this before I can move on to the next steps in the road, really understand your situation. Then you can move on to this advisory consultation step, right? And this is where you're going to meet with the clients, fill out some of the color commentary, get the full story, build rapport, provide your personalized recommendation, be an advisor. Then you take the information you got from there as well. And then you're able to go run your rate quotes. Hopefully you're using a rater. If you're not using a rater, you're going direct. Whatever your bag is, you want to do this in a really efficient way with the necessary data, the right kind of story, the right situations, and find the right carriers that have the appetite for that risk so you can turn around and provide competitive rate quotes. And then you get the quote presentation, right? And that comes through A lot of different methodologies to this and how you want to do it. I've seen, a lot of movement now towards doing video presentations of the quote. Sometimes it's just, hey, I'm just going to fire this off. What do you think? However you want to do that's got to be a really efficient thing. The agent presents the quote, your policy options. Maybe you're doing an apples to apples, side by side comparison, apples to oranges. There's a lot of options there. Um, and then after that, it's like one of those little steps and follow-ups to get people to the point of making a decision, ultimately wanting to win that client and get them through that quote process. I got this from SIAA's Tech Stack Primer. They put this little publication out that says, hey, this is the different pieces of tech that they recommend agencies that are starting out building up. What do they need? Obviously, they need a rater, an AMS, phone system, CRM, right? Basic stuff, a website. And then as you grow and scale, then you need to get a little bit more sophisticated. You got to start thinking about operational processes. And within that is this data collection, data intake platforms. And that's where I want to focus on a little bit today, because I think there's a lot of efficiencies that can take place. So I'm going to dive a little bit into this insurance data intake step. When I think about the road to get here, or the road that passes through insurance data intake, I feel like there's a lot of potholes, and potholes come in are analogous for me to long forms, right? There's detours of missing information. There's stop and go of endless back and forth trying to tease out the information that you need. It's a bumpy ride for both you and your prospects. There's always those hidden roadblocks. The roadblocks slow down sales and create friction in that step of the process, right? That particular intake. So let's explore some of those roadblocks. That's how do we get rid of them, get your process smoother, make this a faster journey. Because at the end of the day, getting accurate information, that's the fuel that drives quality quotes and builds trust. How many of you guys, I'm going to walk through each of these examples, but how many of you guys especially are using long quote forms on your website? Multi-page, I think of these as like multi-page quotes where like you're on your website, you request the quote, and then you go straight into the intake as the next step in that process. It's my feeling that these long multi-step quote request forms are a conversion killer, right? And the reason I say that is we went through this whole, it's a miracle that they requested that quote from you, and you're going to make that very last step for them to request a quote a really long, painful experience, right? And at this point, there is no interaction with you. There's no loyalty. There's no commitment. They've just gotten enough interest to submit that quote, right? And the fact is, and you guys know this, the more fields you ask, the lower the conversion rate, the higher the abandonment rate. And that's a problem, right? Because you don't want to create this huge point of friction right at the end of the part where they're about to raise their hand, right? And even if you're doing a form that's maybe your quote request is a multi-stage, and the initial part you get their basic contact information, which I think everyone should get, right? Because you do want to get a hold of them. You capture partial information, and then you're like, I'm going to catch the rest in that subsequent process. A lot of times that's where the abandonment happens. And you might say, yeah, I got some of the contact information. I can always just reach back out with my other intake form and get it later, because I got their name, email, phone number, and what types of policies they're looking for. That's enough for me to get started on. Problem with that is if they've abandoned their form, they're not sure that they finished the process, right? They've already moved on. And in that situation, you're a bit not in the picture. You're on the bench, you're forgotten, like they've moved on. So it's a bad first impression, and it becomes really hard to recover from, right? Because now if they've abandoned and you're sending them emails and you're calling them saying, hey, I saw you requested a quote. Love to help you out. They're like, no, I didn't really finish. I moved on. I requested a quote from someone else, right? There's so many other things that can happen. So you've lost your credibility, you've lost your momentum. So a lot of you guys use a form afterwards anyway. Maybe ideally, I think you take that quote form and you shorten it and just get that core information, contact information, what types of policies you're looking for. I would say no more than 10 questions. If you can get that lower than that, even better. So forms, they're, and now I'm talking about like the insurance intake forms that you might send as a follow-up. Yeah, you do a short quote, initial quote form. The client says, okay, I'm done. And then you come back to them, you say, hey, I need a little bit more information. And I think it's perfectly reasonable because you do need a good amount of information. I think everyone knows that. So you send them to this long form, and there's different form providers out there, and or it might just be like a custom built website form or a purpose built form provider. But it's generally a pretty bad experience, right? Because you're now sending your first touch as, hey, thanks for doing that. I'm going to go send you this form. It's 42 pages long. Like these little screenshots here, like that's an actual agency's form process, which feels ridiculous. It's 42 pages, multiple questions and fields on each one. And frankly, as you go through it, you guys know this. People don't know a lot of the core information that they're about their policy, and you expect them to get really detailed and send you that information back. There's information people don't know. You're getting bad data from that. People don't know that, hey, maybe I got a 2% wind and hail deductible. Maybe it's 5% wind and hail deductible. Do I or don't I have uninsured motorists? Little nuances in their policies. It's a lot of work. You put them out on an island to figure out how to answer all those questions on their own, which turns around and gives you a lot of unreliable information. It might be, and it takes a while. Look at all these pages of information to go through, right? It might take them 30 minutes, an hour, 3 days. They might get halfway through and be like, I don't know, I'm out, right? And that's probably the worst thing that can happen. So it's a lot of friction, a lot of frustration, not a great experience. Easy for you because you just had to fire off that link and not do anything. But at the end of the day, if it's not a good experience for the client, it's not great. Now, I know a lot of folks will do a phone call or an in-person meeting, jump straight to that sort of try to jump straight to that advisory consultation phone call to get the information. And problems I think there, and this is one of my favorite little memes that I created this like a year ago or 2 years ago, right? But it's that interrogation scene with Batman and the Joker. And I'll let you guys read that and do your own voices in your head. I don't want to ruin my throat doing my Batman voice. But with this process, going back and forth, it's like trying to ask all of these questions, but you're just asking them over the phone. So it's not any easier. If not, it's in some cases it's better because you can guide them to the answer that you're actually looking for or that you'd expect to get, but they're still going off of what they think they know. It's 30 to 50 questions. And in some cases, you're going to get more misinformation because they're going to feel put on the spot and feel like, oh, I got to answer this. I think this is what I have. Okay, I'm just going to tell them like I have a tile roof, but no, they're actually asphalt shingles. That kind of stuff makes a difference. So the that feeling of just peppering them with 30, 50 questions is not a way to build a relationship. It's not a way to get accurate information. It's the essential difference of slamming someone's head into the table with all those questions, right? And there's the scene in there where the Jokers never start with the head. The client gets all fuzzy. And that's what you're doing, right? You're slamming their head. They're getting confused. They're giving you bad information. You're not building rapport. It's a very feels a bit adversarial. They might feel like you're judging them based on what they're sharing with you. And it's time consuming for both parties, right? It's 30 minutes for them, it's 30 minutes for you. And then depending on what kind of systems you have in place, maybe you're doing some data entry as well. So what's a faster way to get all this information than wasting everyone's time? There are faster options. You can use like a pre-fill solution to pull in policy information, to get coverage details, get license numbers and vehicle information and all that stuff. It, if the data is incorrect, You can't really trust the data. And I think anyone that has tried using prefill knows 60% of the time it works every time. It's my little Anchorman. I love Anchorman. But yeah, if you can't trust the data, you don't know where the data came from, you don't know when it was last updated, right? If you can't trust that information, you can't be a trusted advisor. Your credibility is a bit shot. It reminds me of like when you go to a restaurant and the waiter doesn't write anything down, and you're like, hey, I'll have a burger, no mayonnaise, add barbecue sauce, add bacon, cheddar cheese, not Swiss cheese, whatever. Guys, oh, yeah, no problem. And doesn't write anything down. And they come back and they give you the wrong order. And the waiter, you're pissed off at the waiter because he thought he was being a hot shot, not having to write anything down, not right, not asking the right questions. In this case, you look like a fool. So yeah, it's always a bit of a challenge in that sense. And so we're going to the next one. It's, hey, just I just have my client send me a deck page, right? That's easy. The deck page got all the information you need, got all the policy information. You know, I know what they're paying, know what vehicles they have. When you talk to a client or you email a client, you say, hey, can you send me your deck page? First response, what's a deck page? Where do I find it? And like, where do they find it? It got mailed to them like 5 months ago, 11 months ago. Who knows where that physical envelope went? Probably straight to the recycle bin, but maybe it's buried in a filing cabinet. Or they can go into their insurance portal, but their carrier portal is really hard to navigate. They're all a little bit different. That becomes really challenging to just, hey, get them because you can't help them navigate within the hundreds and hundreds of different insurance carrier portals. So you're lucky to get a PDF at all. And if you do, you guys have experienced this where the little image here is what I call the insurance deck page eclipse, right? This is when they black out all the information that you actually wanted to get. They black out their premiums, they black out whatever, thinking like, I don't want to let them know what I'm currently paying, God forbid. Or you get like blurry photos from all these, you get the iPhone 14, your 32 megapixel camera. So the 12 pictures that they email to you is now clogging up your inbox because it's 30 megs per picture. It's crazy. And a lot of times you just get the wrong doc. You get, hey, here's my insurance card. That doesn't tell me anything. But wait, there's more. There's more friction, right? Because after you get all this information, depending on what your system is, there's the data entry involved. If your systems aren't connected, aren't talking to each other, as you're asking and typing in information, data gets messed up, right? It's tedious, it's error prone, it's time consuming. Even if you're outsourcing it to a VA or you're doing it yourself or you have a CSR doing it, right? Things happen and then it's just a waste of time, right? And some of you guys might be saying, I don't like to quote off a deck page because I hear this a lot. I don't trust that their previous agent did it right. I don't trust that their current policy is what they actually need. I prefer to do my own discovery and ask their own questions. Again, that now you get into interrogation territory. I just covered this. Can't find my documents, things get redacted, or just the classic, I don't like to quote apples to apples. Whether you do apples to apples to oranges side by side or just present it on its own merits. Yes, have all these things like their current insurance policies and their current insurance carrier and their current insurance agent, like those are all anchors, right? There's a price anchor, and whether that's what their current policy or like the sticker shock they got when they got their renewal, there's that price anchor, there's coverage anchors. I've always just had 50, 100. Why are you telling me I need 300, 500, right? So there's coverage anchors, there's deductible anchors, how they were previously serviced with different insurance agencies. But the key here is that's their only reference point is what their prior stuff was. So it's important that we acknowledge that information. To recap, this is the midway recap here. Traditional data intake processes leads to frustrated customers, leads to frustrated agents. You get inaccurate information. I think that's probably the most culpable of all is working off of bad information, which leads you to give bad advice, which leads to some lost credibility, or not listed here because you might have just gotten ghosted at some point in that process. We're going to move on here to modern insurance data intake. Now, what does modern insurance data intake mean? I will tell you. Modern insurance should be fast, accurate, convenient, right? We talked about how important it is to get the right information, right? It should be a good modern client experience. And then this is the good part, right? Operationalized into a repeatable process. A lot of folks don't like, they say they have a process, but it's really just, I need to ask these questions, right? How do you operationalize it into a repeatable process? So the like quote comes in, we get the data in this way consistently, and then we send the data over consistently in a certain way. Like, how do we operationalize that and make it repeatable? That's how we see success, and that's how we scale and get more efficient. Minimize data entry, minimal data entry, and integrate into the systems you use most, right? How do we get the data from here to my CRM to my rater? So story time. I want to tell you like a quick origin story of Canopy Connect. I am not the founder. Our founder is Tolga Tezel, and he was having dinner at a friend's house, and the friend's mom was an insurance agent, and she was griping about her day, as we do at the dinner table sometimes. She had a particularly frustrating day. She had a prospect that called in. She was trying to get the deck page to run a quote, and they couldn't find their deck page. They couldn't navigate their portal. They couldn't find it. She was frustrated, and they didn't know anything about their policy. So she decided to jump in her car, drive over to the client's house, and help them log into their computer, log into their insurance portal, click around, download a deck page, emailed it back to herself. Sure, she had a nice chat with them. Went back to her office, so she had all the information she needed that she can then punch into her rater and run the quotes. Right. And I saw Andy just type in the chat, business isn't done face to face anymore. In this case, high touch, high service. She went, I think, above and beyond, and certainly not something that's scalable. But she was telling Tolga and his friend about this, and a light bulb went off for Tolga. He said, I could solve this problem, right? Other companies have done something similar in other spaces, connecting your bank accounts, for example. So he went to work, he started building a basic version to retrieve the deck page information. We connected to 10, 20, 30 carriers, the top ones, and started shopping that to different agents, and they really liked it, really resonated. And so that got him some funding, and we're able to go from 30 carriers to 100 carriers to now 300 carriers, right, across personal and commercial lines. And we're pulling in not just deck pages, but also structured data, right? So now with structured data, you can do a lot more with it. So that's been the genesis of the company, and um, how it's grown over time. This company, of course, is Canopy Connect, and surprise, and yeah, and it has evolved and evolved over time since we started in 2020, and to what we're evolving to now, which is the insurance data intake platform that we are. So folks that are not familiar at all with Canopy Connect, I'll show you how it works in just a minute. But what we do is consumer permissioned sharing of insurance data. So this is the client or prospect goes through a Canopy Connect link, signs in, and we're able to authorize sharing all that information with the agent. Right. So it's information that comes directly from the carrier. It's accurate policy information. It's all structured. We get it in 20 seconds or less from 300 plus carriers. So that's our core bread and butter technology. And we've got well over 3,000 agencies using us. Now we've layered in the ability to just say, hey, let's just upload your deck page. And not just upload your deck page, but now let's extract the data from it in a way that's like better than your standard OCR, optical character recognition. In those cases, L's become ones and O's become zeros, or zeros become O's, and right. We use a tighter methodology for extracting that data, and we're able to do that for a lot of the major carriers. Very recently, we've released the ability to add custom forms. I know I just railed on forms for the previous 20 minutes, but there are elements, let's be honest, where you do need a form. You just don't want this ever long form that is a soul crushing experience. You want it tight, right? You want to verify some of this information that we've already pulled in, we've already structured. And there's a couple of things that is not listed with the carrier that you might need information from that we cannot enrich and we cannot pull directly from the carrier, right? You're able to ask some of those questions. Did you add a spoiler to your car? Did you make any modifications to your home? Things like that. And then data enrichment to complement the collected data. We pull in, we automatically enrich a lot of data with property and building information. And then we also have the ability to do lookups on household vehicles, driver's licenses, and driving records. So this is what we think a modern insurance data intake process should meet the prospect where they are to let them share verified information, quality information, factual information in a way that is easy for them to do. What the experience looks like, typically, if you got them on a phone or you can do this over email, hey, I'm going to send you a link, just click through, find your insurance carrier and sign in. That's going to give me all the information I need to get you a quote, right? Did you get the text? That's the quick 20-second call script. You text a link to the client. You can send it by email. You can do this in person. You can do this with a QR code as well, but it gets them to this link where they would consent, find their carrier from our list of over 300 carriers. They sign in, we pull in their information, and then there's the follow-up forms that you need to ask. We still recommend keeping those light. And then, but within 20 seconds after that, we're able to pull all that policy information, get it to you to view in your dashboard. Once you review it, you've had your consultation, you're ready to go for that generating quotes step. You can send that right over to any of your other systems. We do Hawksoft. A lot of you guys are here from Hawksoft. We integrate with PL Rating, Easy Links, Quote Rush, Turbo Rater, as well as other CRM systems. So very easy to get your data synced and shared to the right places. What information do we actually get from the carrier? This is information that we get typically directly from the carrier. You're going to get auto policy information, vehicle information, information about the homeowner's policy, claims histories, and then we enrich it with property data, building data, and valuation information. And we also work on commercial, so commercial auto policies, business owner policies, and with those we are able to pull commercial loss run summaries. We get all this data as structured data. We also are pulling in PDFs of deck pages and renewal documents. So they may normally be reticent about wanting to share their deck page or even their renewal. What are you actually paying right now? Knowing what renewals have been, like you'll be able to see if they're close to their renewal period, what their renewal is. So you have even more to compare against. What carriers do we have? You can pull information from 96% of the auto insurance market, 91% of the homeowners insurance market, and more than 56% of the commercial multi-peril markets as well, all through the consumer permissioned data sharing methodology, personal lines, and commercial lines. It's super fast. Like from the period that they finish entering in their password and hitting that button, we're pulling information in on average 5.6 seconds to get that policy from the carrier into Canopy Connect onto your dashboard. So usually by the time they get through there and they answer any follow-up questions you might want, that's already pulled into your dashboard. So you can do this literally on the phone. So you saw that script that I had shared earlier. You can literally do that on the phone. You have them on the phone. Hey, I'm going to text you a link. Put me on speakerphone. I'll walk you through this. It's that fast. We got over 10,000 agents on the platform and nearly 2 million policies have been shared already in just 4 years, right? And we've got super high security standards. We're SOC 2 Type 2 approved. It's like super good security. That's the scientific term. And then sending the data where it needs to go. We've got Hawksoft here, all the raters, the most popular raters here, a lot of CRMs, website builders here, and then we connect with Zapier, which obviously lets you connect it with a bajillion other platform points. Yeah, like wherever you need the data to go, it can go, which makes it super easy. So just comparing the different insurance data intake methodologies here side by side. There's the Canopy Connect method, comparing that with intake forms, a phone intake, and pre-fill, right? Canopy Connect, that whole process, 3 minutes tops, super fast, all that stuff. Intake forms, slow. Phone intake, slow, not that accurate. Pre-fill, pretty fast, not very accurate, right? The accuracy, I think, is key here because that's the speed is that point of friction, but the accuracy, that's the points of talking about facts. Up to you if you want facts or friction. If you use Canopy Connect, you get facts, no friction, very easy to use. Yeah, so if you give it a shot, and hopefully you found this presentation to be helpful, you can sign up for a one-on-one demo, and one of our reps will walk you through and dive into the details and show you the actual platform. We offer a 14-day trial, so it's super easy to try it out and see if it works for you. I'm pretty sure it will. And yeah, check out usecanopy.com. Let them know Ray sent you. I don't know. They'll just give me a pat on the back later on. Thanks, take care, and I will see you around. Cheers.